Greetings viewers, Eric the Car Guy here, also known as ETCG1 on this here channel. How the heck are you? I hope well. And hey, if it's your birthday, happy birthday. Eric the Car Guy says so. You can have as much cake as you like as far as I'm concerned. In today's video, I'd like to talk a little bit about purchasing a used car. I did a video on a series of videos on Eric the Car Guy about what to look for when purchasing a used car. In other words, like a mechanical and cosmetic inspection of the vehicle. But in this video, I'd like to talk a little bit about just the process of buying a used car. It's early spring, and I know at least here in the States, a lot of people usually end up looking for used cars about this time of year due to the fact they've got, maybe a tax return or something like that in their pocket, and they're willing to go out and spend it on something new to drive. So that brings me to one of my first points about used cars. Something you should keep in mind, if you're buying a used car, especially if you're buying it from, like, say, a private individual, it's usually because they're not using it anymore, or they have some reasons for selling that vehicle. And that's something you kind of have to take with a grain of salt. Like, there are all kinds of reasons to sell vehicles. Maybe you've moved on to something else, or maybe the vehicle that you have is letting you down. Maybe it's got a whole host of problems and you're looking to get out from under it. So you put an ad in the paper and you look to sell it. Maybe you look to sell it at a good price. Maybe you look to see as much as you possibly can get out of it. Not really sure about that particular situation, but as a buyer of a used car, this is something you have to be aware of. What I usually look for is pride of ownership. I think that's one of the things at the top of my list when I'm looking at used cars, is just to see generally how the vehicle's been maintained and taken care of. There are several different ways, or several different things that I look for, and I cover a lot of those in those videos that I mentioned, which there'll be links in the description for. Overall, when you look at a vehicle, you can tell if somebody cared about it. I mean, is it like full of trash, or in my case with the Subaru, I don't know if you remember, full of dog hair. Just, is it clean? Is it, does it look like it's been taken care of? Because that will say a lot. People buy cars for, well, I guess you could say general transportation, but sometimes, as I've talked about in other videos, they tend to take out their personal problems on their cars, and as a result, those cars tend to suffer. Perhaps suffer mechanical failures that other cars that didn't necessarily have to go through that psychological process as other cars do. So pride of ownership is something to look for. I mean, does it look like it's been well taken care of? And this can be misleading sometimes, because a lot of times people will maybe make a great deal of effort to clean a car up very well before they sell it, and it looks like it's been really well taken care of, but underneath that skin there's a whole lot going on, and that's kind of a tough one. That one I think you can spot with experience, and even if you are experienced, you might not be able to spot it. Getting away from the mechanical inspection or those kinds of things, let's just talk about your budget and how it relates to what you're driving. I see, and this is part of the reason I'm making this video, I see a lot of people who might want to drive a vehicle that is somewhat beyond their means. For instance, say you buy that really nice German car, that luxury car or something like that normally would cost tons and tons of money if you were to purchase it new. But you go out and you find one used and you're all excited about owning it. I'd say you should really be cautious in that situation, and one of the main reasons is because a lot of times those luxury cars come with a luxury price tag, and that may not necessarily be what you're paying at the onset when you first buy the car, but it could be the cost of operation, if you will. Whenever, like, say, a part or something like that fails on that vehicle, it could set you back quite a bit. So if you're maxed out on what you're spending on that used car when you're going out to buy it, you may find yourself in a situation in the not too distant future where something on it fails, like, say, the air conditioning compressor or something like that goes a couple weeks after you buy it. You first buy the car, you never even tried the air conditioning, you're driving around, it's been a couple of months since you bought it, and then you got to use the air conditioning for the first time, and you find out it doesn't work, and then you find out it's something really expensive like an air conditioning compressor. And then you find out that you're going to have to drive around for the rest of the summer with the windows down to try to stay comfortable. And this is what I'm speaking to in this video more than anything else. And I think a lot of that has to do with your expectations as far as when you go out and make that purchase, and your budget. I mean, is it something you really can afford? Try to leave a little room in that budget. I mean, if your budget is going to be, well, why don't I just put it this way, at least in the States, as far as American money is concerned, I would say, at least in my experience around here in South Central Ohio, It's been difficult to find a vehicle that's like good running and driving for less than $2,000. Or yeah, $2,000 seems to be the magic number. So if you go out and you buy a car for like say $500 and you feel really good about it, well, you get it home and you find out it needs $1,500 worth of work, and then you end up at that $2,000 range. So I would say at the very least, at least if you're going out to purchase a used car here in the States, that seems to be a pretty good round number to start with. And getting back to the part about, purchasing beyond your means, like if you find like that really nice car and you think it's cool and it's fun to drive and everything, it probably is. However, when you go to maintain it, it could be beyond your means in that sense. SUVs are another example of this. I see people buying SUVs all the time, and I would say that people are turning in SUVs as used cars or selling SUVs as used cars because they've gotten to the point where they find out exactly how much service and maintenance on an SUV can cost. SUV service and maintenance is extremely expensive in some cases because many of them are all-wheel drive, and with an all-wheel drive system you have that much more to take care of. You have that much more to go wrong with it. You have that much more to service when it comes time to take care of it. Also, big one, tires. You buy tires for an SUV, they're going to set you back really good. So you need to take that into consideration. If you can barely afford that vehicle and drive it off the lot and you're really excited about owning it, it might not be the best purchase for you. So really stop and think about your budget and what's realistic for you, because if you really want to know and you found that SUV that you're just in love with, well, call around. Get the tire size off of it, call around, find out how much it's going to be to put tires on that. Just do that before you actually make the purchase. And if the tires are good on the vehicle when you buy it, great. But if they're not, and you're looking at making that purchase, you got to consider that as part of the cost. And this is what I see a lot. I see a lot of times where people have already made a purchase with a used car, and against my better advice, they have not taken it to be inspected before they made the purchase, and they just bought it because, well, they liked the color and it seemed like a good deal at the time. Well, and then it ends up with me, and I have to tell them the bad news. Well, I don't know if you knew this, but the transmission was going out, or AC that we talked about earlier, or something like that. And that's what I'm trying to put out here. I'm trying to put out just a word of caution, a little bit of warning, because let's face it, used cars are used, and people don't sell cars that they want to keep or that are working for them. There's some reason why they're selling them. Of course, there's a ton of legitimate reasons to sell a vehicle, not because of some kind of mechanical failure or imminent mechanical failure or something like that. Maybe there was a death in the family, maybe that you're moving to another state and you don't want to take it with you, or there's a whole host of quote-unquote legitimate reasons to sell a vehicle. But for the most part, that vehicle doesn't work for the person that's selling it anymore, and you have to take that into consideration. Many people are honest, and many people will honestly tell you, full disclosure on what it is you're buying. Not so much in some cases, and that's why I advocate that if you are thinking about purchasing a used car, that you take it to a professional, preferably one that's a specialist in the type of vehicle that you're purchasing, and get it checked out. I mean, even if you're spending, at like $50 to $100, even if you're spending that kind of money on that, that's definitely going to come back to you. If you're serious about purchasing that vehicle, because if that puts you in a place to where it's beyond your budget, then you've just married yourself into financial woe is what you've done, and that's not what you want to do. You want to stay in a place to where the vehicle does what it's intended to do. It gets you where you need to go, it's reliable, it starts up, it drives, and gets you where you need to be, and doesn't cost you too much in service and maintenance. That's great. So, Eric, what is in your opinion the best used cars to buy? Well, I say this a lot, and I get asked this question from time to time. And in my opinion, the best used cars to buy are these certified used cars. And the reason I say this is you're going to spend more at the onset, but these vehicles come with a warranty. And that warranty can really help you out if it's 2 months down the road and that AC compressor goes out. So then you can just take it back. But normally, I'll say normally because I've actually worked in places where there were certified used cars, that car is looked over, and any of the issues that it's had, any of its maintenances that it's needed, were taken care of before it went out on the lot to be sold. So certified used car is something that's signed off on by the factory. I've done those certifications myself working for the dealership, where they bring a car in. Normally they're lease returns or something of that sort that are brought in, and we look them over, we find out what they need, we do anything that they need, and then they stick them out there to be sold as certified used cars. In fact, as technicians, we had to sign off on inspection sheets that said that we looked at every single aspect of the vehicle, and yes, everything's good to go, and it's great according to that manufacturer's standards. So yes, these vehicles are going to cost more, but in the long run, cost over time, you should make out ahead. And here's another reason why I like certified used, is because if you buy a brand new car, you're basically going to take a depreciation the second that thing leaves the car lot. So from the moment you drive off the car lot, you've lost money on that deal. So really, the only benefit that I can see to having a brand new car is, okay, it hasn't been anybody else's car. Well, you hope. Maybe you bought the one the salesman was driving. Who knows, because you gave it a good deal on it. But that nobody's lived in that vehicle yet, and you get to call that thing yours. You get to be that one owner. And that's a lot. That's a lot to some people, and a lot of people are willing to take that depreciation. And also, you know, the warranty that comes along with that, so they don't have to worry about it. But getting back to the certified used stuff, well, many times those certified used warranties, in some ways, are better than the original manufacturer warranties. So that's definitely something to be considered if you're in that place. But my main point in this video is just to try to convey a little bit of that information and just be realistic about your budget. Be realistic about what you're willing to buy. Another thing about SUVs, fuel mileage. If you're used to driving, like, say, a Civic or a Nissan Altima or something like that gets really great gas mileage, and you move up to an SUV and you think, wow, I'm king of the road, I'm way up high now and everything's wonderful. Well, I gotta tell you, those things get pretty thirsty. So your fuel bills would be a lot higher than they would if you were driving something a lot smaller. Also, in addition to that, I see people with SUVs make a lot of the mistakes thinking that they're invincible, like, say, in inclement weather. Not so. Just because you have something that's all-wheel drive does not mean that on slippery, slick surfaces that you can drive as fast as you want. Not at all. In fact, just the opposite. And I say this because I see quite often in those situations where the things that are usually in the ditch are usually SUVs or something like that. I know I'm really picking on those SUV owners, but and I don't mean to. It's just the example that comes to my head whenever I'm thinking about this topic, and that's where I see a lot of the mistakes that are made, and that people are purchasing beyond their means, as I guess, plain and simple. I mean, just because you like something, just because you're in love with something, doesn't necessarily mean it's right for you. So, be practical about it, and do your homework. And if you can, get an inspection, is what I say. But that's what I have to say on this topic. So how about we continue this discussion, if you will, and I bring you into it. So what are your experiences with purchasing a used car? Have they been good experiences? Have they been bad experiences? Do you feel like you've been taken? Has anything I said resonated with you? Have you had those experiences where you purchased a car and then maybe had a failure later on down the road, or you purchased a used car and you're still driving it today and it's several years later? I'd love to hear about your experiences and your input as far as what you look for when you do purchase a used car. Also, in the description of this video, there will be a link to a forum discussion about this if you wish to continue this conversation, or you can feel free to make comments below, whatever you feel comfortable with. I am Eric the Car Guy. You can always find me at ericthecarguy.com, where if you have automotive questions, I would ask that you type in a couple of keywords to our search function there at the top of the page, and quite possibly you'll get an answer to your query right away. If that's not necessarily the case, feel free to sign up for our forum. It's absolutely free. All you need is an email address, and you can ask your question over the service repair section over there. If you want to connect with me socially, I can be found on Google+, Facebook, and Twitter, and I close each video with be safe, have fun, and of course, stay dirty. Look forward to your comments, everybody.